I was like super angry that you didn't listen to me. So I had a dream about you. And for some reason we were fighting. So what subconscious thing do I have in my mind about you, I wonder? Because in real life we're not fighting.
Physical or verbal? Or
It was a super weird one. Basically, Ant had a Tesla, and I was like, and then you and I were in the Tesla, but it's kind of confusing because we were parking it outside our family home, right? And then I think I was like, you need to get out the car or something, but you were refusing to get out the car, and I'm not sure if you were driving or not. And then you were like, I'm going to drive it over here, kind of thing, and pulled it like way out the way, like not in front of the house for some like random reason. And then I was like, you need to get out the car. We need to park it in the right place, kind of thing. And then switch to being in the house. Mum and Dad return, and the car's not parked. And they're like, oh, there's a massive space here. I wonder why they've not parked the Tesla here or whatever. And I was like super angry that you didn't listen to me in my dream. So I was like, there you go. Anybody that's a counselor, read into that. Which I thought was so funny. I'm like, do I have... and this is nothing to do with you and me, because there is no active issue at all.
consciously.
But yeah, consciously. But even subconsciously, it's like, maybe subconsciously, nothing to do with you. But it's like, is there some aspect of my life where I'm wanting control, but I'm not able to control it? And it just happened to visualize itself as another person, whereas actually it's something inside of me. As like, I want this thing to happen, but it's not happening. And I'm basically getting angry. But as I spitball that, it does make me mindful of, like, this week I've been so mindful of when I hit like a difficult part in coding in Cider.
Yeah.
Rather than spending like that additional time, like rather than spending like 2 days or 3 days where there'd be no actual output, right? Yeah. You decide to like do something easier where you can see output. So I wonder if, and I've started to get irritated by the fact that I do that as a coping mechanism for when you like hit difficult spots, because I want overall momentum and positivity to be the overriding factor, to kind of like walk around the difficulty. And I did a video about this last week or maybe the week before about, that difficult thing that's in your mind. Like, you need to do it, because if you don't do it now, you'll end up doing it later. And it's similar with like YouTube videos or anything, right? If you overthink something or you think it's difficult and you'll like distract yourself, the distraction might be similar, but it might be not similar, right? So in my case, the Insider stuff, I'm doing like a sync playlist feature, which makes absolute sense and is really helpful. And it was a needed feature. However, I hit another stumble in there, like waveforms where you can see the actual waveform, the track to click in at different points. That's like a good feature, so you can figure out what the loud parts sound like and what the quiet parts sound like without having to know the track, right?
Yeah.
So that's an important feature. And now I'm kind of like hitting that, and I'm like, oh, cool, I need to do some research. And it's kind of like slowing your quote unquote efficiency of like that output stuff. But I need to come back to the whole effort, hours of effort. It's all about hours of effort rather than output in this particular case, because sometimes you'll have like research ones, right, where you have to research what's the best approach and how to do it and so forth. So maybe subconsciously, I'm just annoyed at myself that I can't control the fact that I don't like the difficulty and pursue the difficulty to kind of like resolve the difficulty in the first moment rather than the second moment, aka when you return to it. So,
and out of interest, and I'm going to look into this.
We're coming in hot today.
And let's go into the Tesla thing. Is it something that you feel like should be easy, like parking a Tesla? It's got the cameras. It's dead easy to do. It's on a road that you know. I should do this. Is there a I should statement maybe attached? Obviously, this might be overlooking into it, but I thought I'd throw it in there.
Yeah, it probably is. This is an obvious, clear thing to do. Why you're not doing it. and I'm basically getting angry with the fictitious person that is not doing the clear and obvious thing. And to be honest, if we go down the car analogy, even if it took you like 10 extra minutes to park in this spot, right? Regardless of difficulty or whatever, it is the best spot. And that is the best spot. And what's in my mind is like, if you had a Tesla in North Wales, parking it straight outside your house is probably the safest spot to do it. So that makes sense. Don't park it down the road, right? So there is that thing. But I thought it was so funny that I could really sense anger. And generally, I don't feel consciously feel anger in life. But I do get frustrated with myself more than external people or external stuff.
Isn't
more
that
than
just
anything.
internal anger?
Yeah, it's just internal anger. It doesn't mean that I don't feel it, but it's like anger is something, in that like totem pole of like experiences, anger's like down at the bottom for me.
But
So.
with that person of the dream, your angry self, let's say, it's like watching an episode of Inside Out.
Yeah,
Inside
without
Out
the
3,
animation.
this is. Am I right in thinking if I took 10 minutes to park the car, you would be angry, or is it just the fact that the location was the issue, not the faffing around?
I think it's clear that it's not listening. So it's not listening that's the anger part, as in like what I think is right for the situation is not happening. And I'm able to do it because for some reason you're the one driving or something, and I can't get in the car and drive it back. There's like obviously a disconnect, and maybe it's a subconscious disconnect, which assumes essentially that I might presume that I don't have control in this situation. However, that's a false narrative, right? I actually do have control. I don't need to get angry. I can just resolve it, aka go into the car, drive it into the space that it needs to be driven in. So I wonder if that's some sort of subconscious thing where I think that I don't have control over the delaying of doing something difficult when I do. And I know that, but I put it off because it is difficult. Do you know what I mean?
But maybe subconsciously you don't have control because you're submitting your control to other things like distractions. So then subconsciously, technically, you're not in control of fixing the issue because you can't build a sandcastle without getting in the sand vibe. And if you're always like, I'm not going in the sand, I can't bother, whatever. Obviously, this is an extreme version. I'll go and play in the park on the grass. Well, technically, that is out of your control because you need to be on the sand to then control the sand.
Yeah, you need to position yourself in the car to park the car, as it were. Yeah. Makes sense, but it's funny. It's the whole, when you sleep, wake up, go back to sleep. Those are the best, most vivid dreams you ever have. There's so much clarity.
I have been daydreaming recently. This is
all right. Here we go.
This is
share your
probably
grievances.
More off the pod content, but I thought
This is where you tune into our OnlyFans. Yeah, this is where subscribe now to see what Tom's going to unveil about his his history or his present. Yeah.
I've been daydreaming recently about when you were a kid. You used to press my buttons.
Oh, it's getting juicy and cut.
Do you remember doing that? And if so, what were you trying to do?
So I remember messing around. But
it's okay to cut all this out.
Yeah, we can cut all this out. This can go at the anticipation of the front. So I do remember like having what do they say, altercations or whatever. Like I do remember having like run-ins with you. I don't necessarily remember why. I can't recall why I would do it, because it's not necessarily like, let's think of the classics, right? It's not necessarily boredom because we're outside rollerblading together or like doing sport together anyway, right? Or like messing around. So I can't think that it was boredom. Engagement? Like maybe it is attention, but that would be that I didn't feel loved or whatever, right? But I don't think that's the case. But
that's interesting.
I don't know, because also what it might have been is like, again, I'm spitballing, right? So some of this might not be like true as such, but I'm like, was I just doing it just because, with no actual reason? Because obviously I didn't do it, as in I didn't do it out of a fear of ramifications or anything, because the ramification was, yeah, you come over and hit me, right? So I know what the ramification is, but that didn't stop me from doing it. So I don't
Might be
actually.
adrenaline.
Yeah, maybe I enjoyed the
Adrenaline
kick.
junkie.
Yeah, the buzz, the high. I don't know. What do you think it was?
Well, I know that it
Oh,
wasn't. I know it
okay.
wasn't the
I
thing
know
that
it
I was
was.
thinking. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was also thinking like,
Because I
could it
think for
have been?
me, when you push people's buttons, the only reason why I would do that is for like I'm trying to annoy someone or trying to
Mm,
bully them. But I'm aware that that's like because I class it as an action that you're in control of that and you're
mm,
deliberately doing it. But I'm
mm,
aware that actually there's either engagement or there's playfulness. There's a lot of different elements to pushing someone's buttons. And I guess for you, if there was not even an intent behind it, well, that's completely different to what my view of that playfulness button pressing
yeah.
mode
You know
is.
what it might be is, so it might be two things. Maybe, I don't know if this is true, but I'll spitball them just for idea's sake. One, it could be jealous of your security, right? You were pretty secure as a kid. You knew what you wanted, right? Whereas I might have been a little bit more insecure and found it difficult to, feel settled. So whether or not my playfulness was essentially kind of like, oh, cool, we're the same because you don't have it all together vibes. Do you know what I mean? So that could be one.
Yeah.
I don't feel that resonates, but that could be. Another thing is because in school you are required to be so disciplined and so well behaved, which I genuinely was not, which didn't require energy to do so. Like that's just the way that I was because I was a little bit quieter, right, as a kid.
Yeah.
I wonder if this was the moment where I got to be like, quote unquote, myself, which isn't necessarily like irritating and annoying people and bullying because I didn't, well, to my knowledge, I wasn't that type of alpha as a kid, right? I might have been a follower, but not like the primary oppressor. So I wonder whether or not it was more so like, oh, I get to be playful and silly. And the accidental ramifications of that is that I irritate you or get on your nerves or whatever, because maybe subconsciously I know that you love me regardless. Whereas friends might be like, cool, I'm not playing with you anymore. Who knows? Again, I'm just spitballing. I don't know what resonates the most because none of those really truly resonate. But I could plausibly think that it's probably so disciplined in every other aspect of life. This is where I get to be playful with, like, in a safe space.
I think
basically.
that's a form of connection, isn't it? Particularly more so for probably kids. It's probably beaten out of you a bit more as an adult. But it's that, particularly for probably boys as well, it's that play fighting element of using up energy but bonding in the same mode.
Yeah, because it's kind of a safe space of you're not going to like disown me or whatever, right? Or you're not going to tell me off. Now, I might get told off, I might get hurt, but you're not thinking, like, kids aren't thinking about step two. They're just thinking about in the moment, aren't they? Like now, here, right now. But I would say, and again, it'd be good to hear your story, is like, generally speaking, I don't think our relationship has ever been strained or like had challenges that have like resulted from those kid moments. I might be wrong, of course, because it's just my opinion. But I think generally we've always got on. So
Yeah.
I don't think there was malice or like negative intentions in it. I think it was more so like wanting connection, probably. But again, it's difficult to recall back like 30 odd years, right, or whatever, or 25, or 20 years.
Yeah, no, it's not been a strain. It's just been I recognise
burden.
that. No, I recognise that Megan has that playful pushing buttons mode sometimes, more so when she's bored. And then I'm like, why do I feel like it's as if she's trying to annoy me and that type of thing? And then I teleport it back to be like, I remember when Dan was pushing my buttons, I never got that conclusion of why that was going on. If that makes sense. I was like, oh, I wonder if it's just because I didn't have a conclusion. You just input conclusion here. So if
Yeah.
my conclusion is that, well, you'd only see that in a school, and I don't know the friendships behind it, so you think, oh, that person's bullying that person or annoying that person or trying to get the worst out of them. You're like, well, I know it's not that, but that's the only conclusion I've got. So it's like, I do think there is a playfulness of I want attention now, or like I'm bored, or I want to have fun now, or whatever, that type of area that's completely different. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to know if you had any random
that makes sense.
revelations.
I wonder if
that I've not thought of.
Yeah, I wonder if the fact that we're middle kids, right? Because Megan's not the youngest, I'm not the youngest, right?
Correct.
So I wonder if they say typically middle kids want attention because the eldest kid gets attention because they're the first one, and the youngest gets attention because they're the youngest. So the middle ones typically get forgotten about. But I'm not sure if that's 100% true because I generally was a little bit more introverted anyway to begin with as a kid. But I do know when I went too far, and I think it was unnecessary to go that far. So it would be really interesting to go back and be like, hang on a second, like, why did we like one up each other and I end up like smacking a thing over your back to break
So is that
like, why did that escalate there?
You knew you went too far after the fact, like a kid, or you know where the line was and pushed over the line when you say that?
I definitely think
it's okay if you don't know.
I definitely don't think that I knew that was a line.
Yeah, so you've been a kid of like the clock afterwards vibe.
Yeah, just being a kid. But bizarrely, I wonder if it was escalated to that moment because I know I was in a safe space. I know that I wouldn't have done that anywhere else. So that's unfair to you. But then I'm not sure if it's like, you know how kids essentially discover, or like discovery is done by doing. Yeah. And maybe there's like a small subconscious kind of like, oh, I've seen WWF. Mum's telling us not to watch this, or you see it by accident or wherever, and you'd be like, oh, what would it be like to smash a plastic chair over the back of somebody? But I can't try that anywhere, right? But you're like
it's that
innocent
mode.
intrigue and exploration in a safe space means that you crack a plastic hockey stick over your brother's back, younger brother's back, in a super innocent way with no malice. But I don't know.
Sheer intrigue.
I apologize. I apologize again for that. That was not right, and I do not condone any sort of violence at all, even if it would be claimed as discovery. But yeah, who knows? It is very fascinating. So yeah,
might get more views if we talk about Tom and Dan's therapy session about their past lives.
And, just lie on this couch for me.
Yeah.
But that is
on the insight of our brains and our chats.
Yeah, for sure. On a more positive note, you can do the intro this week, and I've just got two ideas or two like things that I wanted to share about, and I'm not sure if you've got like a third thing to share about, and then we can tie a nice bow on it.
I'll think of a third thing.
Yeah, you can do the intro now, and then we'll run from there.
I feel like I need to know the episode number because that's what I do for my intros. Because then I know that even though I don't know the topic, I can say this is episode whatever.
Just say this is episode 50, and then say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll splice whichever 54, like the digital voice.
Welcome back to Don't Be a Doorstop. My name's Tom, and that is Dan over there, or there, depending on what this is, or it's probably AI. It has to flick to you, and you have to say
hi.
Or
here as I'm speaking.
Okay. And there is Dan over there. And this is Don't Be a Doorstop. We talk all things business, legacy, and therapy from now on. Dan's got 2 topics for us. We'd like to have a third, so we'll see if a third one comes to our mind. So, do we have the wheel? The wheel?
No,
Or
we
is
don't.
it a
We need to have a
random
physical
A, B?
thing. Yeah, we need to have a physical thing, don't we? So people can like see something more physical. I thought last week's episode where I was running off was quite funny, and you did really well to fill in the gaps as well, which is cool.
Actually, quite hard. I understand the tennis rain off now, of why they just add proper fillers and drag in anyone to just add in conversation.
And they say like such funny words. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know how you describe sports. I can't think of any like very specific examples right now, but it's the way that they narrate something. They always come up with funny ways of saying stuff that you would never say in a conversation. Yeah. But it is what it is. Yeah. So the first one, have you ever checked your tongue for like health reasons?
I have got Naomi to check my tongue, I'm pretty sure, back in the past. And I've looked at it but don't understand what it is for, because I know you can tell things. But
yeah, so basically Chinese medicine, they use the tongue to identify signals on what could or could not be happening in your body. So depending on the color of it, the size of it, the teeth imprints, I think, the shaking of it, like the cracks within the actual tongue and the coating of the tongue, then it basically will direct somebody to be like, okay, cool, there might be an infection, or you might have like digestive issues or something, and then they can address it following on from there. Now, I thought the other day, why don't you have like a tongue tracking app that allows you to take a photo, analyzes your tongue, to be like, cool, you got this like big center crack, so that means you got digestive problems. I can't remember what it actually is, but I'll just say that for, caveat, right? And then it would suggest like some sort of recommendations based on like some like referral links or whatever. And then you could pay to speak to a specialist, which is near me. It's just like chatting away. Or you could potentially get it that it's like you have a video call with her or whatever. But generally it could be like something that you track. So you'd start taking a photo every day or every so often, and you'd be able to look back. So like, okay, like a month ago, my tongue was looking in this particular way. I've then done these things, and then now it's looking better, as it were. And I thought, chances are somebody's created that app, right? Like one person has created like an oral app, as in like you take a photo of your mouth and it'll tell you stuff about your mouth. But nobody's taken nobody's taking photos of your actual tongue and giving direction on that. So I was like, that could be a cool like $4.99 app where you just take photos of your tongue. But the trouble is, when you got the camera so close to you, it doesn't kind of focus properly because you're trying to take a photo of your face or because it's by yourself. So it's a little bit hard to get a good photo. And I would use like ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a little bit like vague. So I'd have to custom the prompt to make it a little bit more detailed. But you can rate or roast my idea.
Yeah, I think
food pun.
It sounds like a really interesting idea. I think it's very simple in the sense that everyone's got a camera and most people have got a tongue. And a mirror a lot of the time, or can go to somewhere that's got a mirror. Obviously, like you said, the struggle of
the selfie
probably because
it's
quite dark, so you probably need like a secondary light / or torch that maybe might help with the what do you call it? The focusing. But I guess what you could do is you would have like when you go on an AR or VR app, it'll explain the app and show you roughly how far you should do things, and like this is the positive mode, this is you're too far, you're too close vibe. It's like you would, as long as you incorporate that it's sort of idiot proof in the sense that you can come up with a formula that you're like, okay, hold it this far away from your mouth, and more often than not, it's going to take a photo, and that'll be most of your issues.
Yeah, you could have like a
random
dotted
other
outline,
idea that's just
right?
popped to my brain is imagine if you just had like an AR scan with the LiDAR.
So you can see the textures, yeah,
Yeah.
and the volume density of the tongue. Yeah, you could have some sort of like dotted outlines or something, because when it's like take a photo of your face and they have this like oval, and you're just trying to line it up with the oval, then you take a photo. So you could have that as an overlay to like have a dotted outline where you'd want them to take a photo of your tongue. Because what I was doing is I was doing it as a selfie mode, so I wasn't taking a photo in a mirror. I was taking it directly, and I think it was harder for it to focus because it's close up to your mouth.
You didn't hold it upside down.
No, but
Yeah.
So I think the focusing was wrong.
I think as long as you did some sort of walkthrough for like a generic phone focus mode, then you probably could solve 60 to 80% issues in that first instance. Yeah, I think it is quite interesting. And maybe you could have like, the one of those football, if you're good at attacking or good at shooting or good at tackling type of spider chart thing, you can have that tracking so not even necessarily like a chat with Yumi. Yumi can just tweak it here and there of, it's more red, or it's become more swollen or less swollen or more cracks. Yeah. So then you can see it like go up and down. Like this is the aim of where you want to get. This is what you're at now, vibe. And then like maybe the odd suggestion. So then you can put generic suggestions of, if it is swollen, what do you do? If it's not swollen, what do you do? So then depending on how high or low it is, it will trigger the response.
I think that is difficult. I agree with you. I think it's difficult because I don't really know how technical the interpretation is, in the sense of like, I don't know how true it is. As in, like, Chinese medicine, it feels like guiding principles to these things, but it might need some like interpretation alongside of that, right? So you might need to ask some additional questions. So I'm not sure how like tongue alone would do it. Like other things I was thinking is like, what other items, what other objects or body objects could you kind of like include? So like pulse is one thing, but there's like the 3 pulses, right? So, and those 3 pulses match up to something different. So I'm like, how? I wouldn't be able to do that unless you got somebody to check their pulse themselves. But yeah, I was thinking like a tongue thing, really simple, like spin off. But then what other thing? Like,
and then you take all those photos and put them on OnlyFans.
I said that to Kimmer yesterday, just like full on laughing to myself, and we're like, take all these photos. Like the good tongues will go and get promoted to OnlyFans.
I don't know. Some people might like
T's and C's. Yeah,
might like all of them. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking if we recorded a video, maybe the video would be able to say, because if your tongue is shaking, right, or like twitching, that's another thing. So
yeah,
we won't be able to capture everything if it's just a photo. However, maybe that's like a bonus thing you pay for like video analysis rather than just photo analysis.
You basically need to know what are the boundaries and the constraints, and then what can you do or not do. Because let's say if you had an app focusing just on the cracks, you might be able to do that. But on the size or redness, it might be a bit difficult. So then it's finding out, okay, what can you implement? You might not necessarily need to implement everything. And then actually when you do go to sort of a specialist, you can show them the chart of the stuff that you do know, and then it might add to their knowledge.
Yeah, and even if the doctor was able to see, or the specialist was able to see like 7 photos of your tongue previously, like all like last few weeks, and then they saw you in real life, then they'd be able to do it. And it's similar if you had a video call with them, like maybe the focus or the clarity wouldn't be able to like properly see it, so you'd need a face-to-face rather than a video call. But again, the other thing is like, well, maybe we could hook you up with a acupuncturist or somebody that knows Chinese medicine like locally. But if you're into Chinese medicine, chances are you're already seeing somebody, or you're seeing an acupuncturist or somebody of that vein anyway. So it's like introducing somebody fresh that doesn't know this stuff into tongue health, and then off the back of that do referrals and connect them with real people for like a fee.
To be fair, you probably have to do it dirt cheap / or free, and it'd be just more of an educational piece, and then you refer to local people or whatever. Because then people might then go, oh, I didn't realize that the tongue shows up so much information or whatever, and then we'll get into it a little bit more or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking free, but then you end up having a bunch of free stuff, but then nobody ever progressing because they're not interested. However, if you were like, cool, take the fee up front. So if it was like $2.99, you did this thing, and then you could like unlimited storage of tongue photos, as it were. Then that
I
might
guess
be
the
that you
marketing
get
would
the
be easier
insight
because
straight
it'd
away.
be like, save wasting a Starbucks on your tongue. Just use your money on our app or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Introduce your tongue to insights and data rather than another cup of sugar or whatever. So yeah, so that was my tongue idea. I was like, is there any other? Can you think of any other things that you could just like take a diary of? Now, funnily, I've just said this, and I know exactly what you might say next. And I also, yeah, I know of somebody that's doing something in this realm, but I'm not sure if it's public, so I'm not sure if I can share it. But yeah, can you think of anything else you'd take photos of in a diary capacity that you could do in an app, like a one-off?
I don't know if I want to take photos of the thing that you're thinking of.
Yeah. Funnily enough, though, I think people do that for like health tracking, right? So if it's kind of like, oh, if you have okay, I'm going to say bowels, right? A bowel problem, then you'd be able to track it and you'd be able to do it. So I know somebody working in that space, which is quite interesting. So I also, yeah, exactly. A smelly one at that too. So I don't think I'd be personally needing that kind of insight, to be honest. But I mean, I know that people do to manage other conditions.
Because I know that I think I've spotted that. I don't know how far along this is, but they're looking to see if you can take brains, like not brain scans, but like some sort of sensors to scan the brain waves or something via like AirPods. I know that they're looking at it probably in like 5, 10 plus years. So then it'll be able to sense like, oh, the brainwaves that you're thinking bobbing are, you're tired or you're hungry or you're whatever. I don't know how much information you'll get from that. But I guess it's going down the route of, let's say you got that. Oh, you're tired. And then you go to the toilet and then there's like an eye poo that scans your poo in order. And it's just like, in a weird way, it's like, I find data really interesting, but would we become like some sort of lab rats or become like a robot because actually then you've lost all your decisions because you want this perfect health? I can't quite tell if that will be like, in a weird way, you won't enjoy life because you know exactly everything that you do. Oh, that's your Apple Watch has just took off 1 year of your life because you've had another Coca-Cola or whatever. It's like, it's one of those things that would too much information then destroy people.
I think it would be very interesting because I was daydreaming about this before. I was like spitballing, like, what are some things that you don't go into unprepared, right? So you wouldn't go into an exam unprepared. You like study for it, or from a driving test, like don't get unprepared. You practice or whatever. But then for like health or whatever, you don't do anything. You just assume the best. So for example, you'll just ingest whatever and hope that it's good. You don't like do any upfront research or anything like that, because really people don't want you to do the research. They would rather you look at marketing than the research. The other day I was thinking, is it true that we need 3 meals a day? And is that a marketing ploy to introduce things like breakfast cereals and stuff, right? And is that a whole marketing ploy to sell more cereal and to sell more food by saying, hey, we need 3 meals a day, or not? Do you know what I mean? It's like those little things.
Apparently it was.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm saying, again, this is where we all get our like tinfoil hats out a little bit, but it's, I think it'd be cool because you'd send the information to your 3D printer. It would print out a food, like 3D food, that's like the ideal thing to make your poo better. And then you just like ingest it. So I'm pro like using data to like just keep you ticking along in a positive direction.
I do find that interesting though, how big corporate companies, they'll be coming after us now.
Yeah.
It's like, if you go against the grain of that, everyone's go-to natural instinct is you're wearing a tin hat, which actually is like, that is the perfect marketing strategy for a massive company, because it's like, you're crazy if you don't follow us, but they're just getting minted because we look crazy if we don't follow them or whatever. Because even I was like listening to some guy on Instagram, and he's this guy that literally tears a new one of any company that tries to sponsor him and anything else. But then he'll bring up all the like research and lawsuits and what else are they into and links and this type of thing. And I find it so fascinating that, yeah, you look crazy if you go against the grain, but it wouldn't really surprise me if then a lot of this comes to light a lot more. Probably like, I would say like once AI is a bit more vibrant, but I don't know, because I guess if the companies are controlling what information gets spread, then it's difficult again. So I do find it very interesting, the sort of, I guess, misinformation or whatever. I do think it's a sad world that we live in, that I guess we put all the trust in these companies, and they were probably founded families or whatever, and then they're pushing for the money, and then it's changed into something completely different now.
Especially when you can see the two sides, right? Let's say, for argument's sake, we've introduced, we need to sell more food. So we've introduced this like 3 meals a day. We need to sell more cereal, so we do this stuff, right? The cereal then has like sugar or whatever, so you want to bother eating it because nobody's going to bother eating something that's dry. You then, on the flip side of that, fast forward X years, you're then there to like coddle them with this like new health orientated kind of like medicines and stuff, because you've created now medicines to deal with the fact that somebody's been eating your sugary cereal all these years. You know, it's like a combination of like, I think life is about how do you monetize a human in every step. So you like feed them, you then like look after them, and you're trying to monetize them and like, and push everything to the absolute extremes.
And that's the thing, is it's a weird state that we live in, because I sort of feel like it's as if you're a slave but with a wage, but you don't actually have a choice in that wage, because you have cravings, because let's say you're not getting your meat and veg or whatever, so you're craving more sugar, so you buy more things, so then your wage is sort of used on just more stuff. And I don't know, I think that's where sort of the power of my faith helps, because I can pass that on to God, but also he'll challenge me in that, making sure that other things don't become my lord, like sugar or money and things that are so easy to totally control your life, which is sad.
It's about being like not hyper aware, but just aware, right? And stepping back. Like I did a video about how life is subduing you. You know, like generally speaking, it kind of ties into a while back I saw this guy, this like doctor or like specialist speaking on the Diary of a CEO, how like life generally is subduing you. Because if we take like the way that we walk in our shoes, like it's been adapted to be like soft, so like our like the way that we walk is a bit different, and you know, escalators, how we would choose to use an escalator, whereas before you'd walk upstairs, or you would like walk a lot more, or you're using cars. Now there's a bunch of benefits to cars and airplanes for traveling from A to B in a faster time, but if you're taking like, if you look at the granularity of like, okay, you're never really exercising anywhere because it's eradicated from just like general life interactions, then you start to get ill or whatever, then we're here to like pump you with drugs because we're selling drugs. Again, not everything is bad, not everything is good, kind of thing, isn't it? It's just like finding that middle ground.
I do find it really interesting though, because if you do teleport back X amount of years or whatever, the how much that person could have done 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago in a day, versus us with TVs, laptops, phones, computer, cars, we could get a lot more done, but we're probably still not satisfied and feel like we need to do more, even though we're probably doing like potentially a month's worth of work for someone that's like traveling the world and needs to do that by a horse and cart, or like an old car or an old plane or whatever.
Yeah,
so
or even
fascinating that it's like, go for it.
Oh, I thought you were going to finish your thing, or even like hunter-gatherer type like experiences and behaviors. they would say that like people wouldn't bulk because bulking needs to be sustained. So hunter-gatherers generally were pretty like lean, right? They weren't like big guys. Whereas we have, again, through marketing, adapted what beautiful looks like, and beautiful, the definition of beautiful will be somebody with muscles, right? However, that's just like a narrative that we've all been fed, because we want you to come to these gyms and use all this equipment and buy these things. But then also, if you go into the gym, then you require more like food or like more intake, which is great because that means we're selling more food. So I'm like, really getting big and bulky, you then now have to sustain this. So that in itself is like just an interesting, again, I'm not saying that anything's like wrong. I'm just like, as an observation, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that's my excuse not to go to the gym, because I'll have to sustain it.
Sort of like invisible tax, isn't it? In the sense that if you want to be muscly, the invisible tax is you might want to pay for a gym and pay for a lot of food and pay for protein.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, what you're saying is just be aware that there might be these invisible taxes that if you commit to for life, you'll be on this sort of treadmill. Good pun for the thing.
It's trying to find
certain situations.
It's trying to find the kind of like the more natural, healthier alternative to things. Of course, it doesn't forego like innovation, especially around medicine, right? We've innovated with certain medicines because there's been money in the system. So that makes sense. But yeah, it's just very interesting. And also put that all in with like, if we did not need these medicines, then where would all those people go? Do you know what I mean? Like, where would the infrastructure go? But I'm like, you just move the infrastructure into the next problem that we have as society, right? Rather like retrain a bunch of people or whatever, rather than sustain it just because we've hired 500 people in making sugary breakfast cereals. Like, well, let's just move those 500 people somewhere else where it'd be more positive, right?
I think what I find very strange is, let's say these sort of corporation marketing styles get broken into pieces. Well, what is next? Is it just TikTok influencers doing a sort of a whole scale of what is really bad to what is really good, and then everything in between that then you have to discern what all of it is, rather than if one person's pumping out one message, it's a lot easier to sort of jump on, okay, if that's the way to, I should eat this and do that, straightforward, I'll follow that. But then there becomes this sort of window of discernment and research that I guess might come in a lot more post, if that sort of information gets sort of pulled, which would be quite interesting to see what sort of innovation and products come into place there.
This is why personalization, again, AI is great at mass personalization. Why don't we have like data drive the options rather than like, oh, this is the new thing? Because again, things are popular and then not popular, right? Fads and all. So it might be that a particular diet does or does not work well for you because we're so intricate as humans in our like DNA makeup and our like bodily functions and stuff and our experiences and things. So I'm like, why don't we just like give all this information up for grabs for people to then to be able to like analyze it themselves and then decipher stuff based on research. But again, a lot of the time that like the pathway that's trodden less requires like more energy to like scope it out and do it. A lot of the time we'll just follow the masses in the big path because it's wide. It's really entertaining down this pathway, whereas this one is a little bit more lonely and things. But yeah, it's about giving people options, right? Give people the information, allow them to make choices based on that information. Which is, not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to just like coast, right? Or they might have been subdued into just taking the easiest option. But if you can be aware, then I think that's my preferred route, being more aware. So
yeah, I think I'm coming in probably because I'm quite stressed the last couple of weeks and got a lot on my brain. I feel like I've become more hyper vigilant. So I think I need to relax a little bit more. But
talking about stress, I've bought a grounding mat. So we are essentially, there's like an electromagnetic kind of like field, right? where the Earth has its own like natural grounding mechanism, and we sometimes need some way of like dispersing that like energy or like intensity. So you can do it through this grounding mat or by walking on the earth, right? Like walking barefooted, on grass or whatever. So I'm like really interested to see if one, it's a placebo effect, as in somebody telling you this will be great for you, and then you think, oh, this is going to be great, and then you sleep and like, this is great, or not. So I just bought like a 30 quid grounding mat that will just go at the bottom of your bed. You just got to touch it with skin or through like thin clothing. So sometimes they put it as bed sheets. And it's interesting because they say that people that have like pain or inflammation or like difficult to sleep or whatever, it like calms you down, because it's essentially what I would understand it to be. Again, I'm not like in any way clinical or medical or an expert. It's kind of like transferring some of that like extra energy into the ground rather than it just being with you and staying with you. So I'm very fascinated to see if it actually makes a difference or not. Again, I might not be able to see the difference, right? But if I feel the difference, that would be one thing.
So is this what you're testing next for the audience?
Yeah, so I've done glucose stuff. I've started doing my Huel daily greens again, because I think I need to pick that back up. I then still want to do some vitamin tests and like map out my own like blood kind of like makeup to figure out if I even have deficiencies or not, because otherwise you just got expensive urine, right? And then did my like clothing stuff, which I sorted, and then now I'm on to grounding. And the next
How are those
one,
t-shirts?
really good. This is not one of them. I need to do a wash because I've spent through my my things. Can
people tell the difference, or can you tell the difference? I can't quite tell if it's a marketing thing or if it's a genuine thing.
Yeah, I do like the fit of them, so it makes sense to me. So the only trouble is because so the company's called True Classic. They're based in the States, so all their stuff gets shipped from the States. I thought they had a base in the UK. They do for some things, but not everything. So it takes a long time to get it shipped over. But yeah, I love the fact that I've just got one place that I'm going to get stuff. And it's like, cool, I don't need to think about that anymore. As in, like, I'm trying to subdue myself in decisions that are just like taking too much of my thought, which is funny. So yeah, sometimes life will subdue you, but then also you want to subdue yourself.
Submit yourself to good companies.
Yeah.
So second topic, we might not even have time for third topic.
Oh yeah. Well, we've spoken about some extra stuff in there anyway. So there's this thing called Indie Page. You know, like Linktree, where you've got like your own version and you have a bunch of profiles. Well, just think about that, but for companies, right? So, or startups. So you have created 5 different companies or 3 different products or 2 different products or whatever, or 5 different apps, and you want to list them on a website. You also have income based on those apps, and you can link up your income based on those apps. Now, that exists. It's called Indie Page. Now, if you have a load of people do that and connect them with their incomes for each of those startups, you now essentially have a database of startups that you can run as like, I'm not sure if you've seen a site called Product Hunt. It's like every day there is a kind of like you can submit new products, and these could be mostly digital type services or products. And they get rated, people comment on it and people use it, and then they rank it very much like Reddit or like Hacker News, where the ranking of it promotes it in the list of today. And if you get the first, then you can be like product of the day. And it just happens every day, right? So it's this kind of like competition style thing for kudos of like being known as product of the day on Product Hunt for whatever product you've got. So it brings a bit of traffic, bit of attention alongside that.
Nice.
So cool. Now you started with this Linktree stuff. You now have a bunch of information where you can essentially spin off your own version of Product Hunt, right? Because you have all these startups and you just get people to vote for those startups. Now you don't need to do it daily. It just is a database. And for each category, because you know the categories, because you've asked for the categories to build the Linktree, you would get people to rank them. So that's one, like a great database. Now this first bit is paid. So you'll pay to get your page, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a free version, I don't know. The middle one is just like traffic and attention. And who knows if you can sell additional products, because these people are trying to find startups. So you can then sell stuff to these people. Then the third thing is, because you know these people run startups, maybe they want to sell that startup at a certain point. So now you've got a database of people that want to sell their startups, and you like can direct them either to another site. So there's a site called acquire.com, which is where you buy startups, and it's more so bootstrap type startups. So I'm like, from this one idea, you have this like ecosystem of stuff. And I just thought, again, I have a real kind of like appreciation for when people create one tool and it like spins off, like it's the same information. It just spins off another product, another idea, and it kind of like is a bolt on to your stuff. And I think Insider has a similar feel where, cool, you'll add your music here. Well, if you've added your music here, we can now create a sync platform and we can start pitching your music. So it's like, with the same information, what other service can you do as like a bolt on, which I think is cool. Not everybody will connect. So not everybody's going to sell a startup, but it's now there, right? So you're just kind of like this funnel of activity,
that's cool.
which I thought was just brilliant. I really like the guy. His name's Mark L. I can't remember his surname, but Mark spelled with a C. But yeah, I thought that was a really, really cool thing. So
Sweet.
if
I'll have to have a look at that, see what it's like.
if you're running a business or you're doing some sort of like providing some sort of like SaaS, like a service, could you use the same information spun off in a different way? Like I do a little bit with the $1 Million Ideas website. You type in your like an interest to generate an idea or ideas, and those ideas go into a database. Now that database can be sold, right? Of like, hey, you can buy this database of 1,200 $1,200 million ideas. But having the different spin-off databases is very, very clever and interesting. So I'm not sure if any ecosystem type idea comes to mind. And that's one way to keep things interesting for you, I guess. Yeah,
not off the top of my head. I've actually become very tired and very hungry as it's hit 12 o'clock. So I can't.
You're being subdued.
But on the interesting side is we got our first subscription with To-Do app. I don't know if you spotted. I don't know if you know who that is.
No, I didn't. Is it a family member?
I'm unaware. I just spotted it on the app today. I think
that's
someone did
awesome.
it a couple of days ago. So we're slowly building out our ecosystem.
Yeah, and now we just need to sell them some other app. There was another app I recently saw. I'll send it to you. It had a similar concept of like a focus list and all this stuff. I'll have to send it to you because I liked some of the like the visuals, the way that it looked, and whether or not there'd be some like additional inspiration in there for how we continue to improve it. Because I've not touched it in a while. I need to essentially do a few things on the app. So, but I've not got around to other priorities, as it were. So, so.
We should probably talk about the whole ecosystem that we've got at some point.
Yeah,
it's probably changed since the start of this podcast.
Oh, for sure. But that's the one. It's like messy progress, isn't it? Which is the best type of progress.
So from therapy to poo talk to ecosystems.
Good luck finding keywords for that one.
Pooing theories. Sure. We're here for any roasting or reviewing of
we don't want to be roasted. We will roast
of ideas, or you can write in the comments. We don't mind it. It's good. It's good. Good content.
Come at us with hate.
And that seems like a good end to the pod.
We'll chat to you later. I've always wanted to say that as a sign off. There's a lady called Patrice Washington. She always at the end of her podcasts says, chat to you later. And I think that's such a clever sign off, because it's as if it's not like bye for now or whatever. It's like chat to you later, ends. So I'm like, I've always forgotten to say chat to you later, but until next time, chat to you later. Oh, it doesn't work for you, but it's just like, okay guys, chat to you later. Bye for now.
Chat to you in the next video, because hopefully they're binge watching our stuff.
Yeah, see you in the next video. Chat to you later.